wake the neighbors, or we're okay?
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamna Tira Vandachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. हम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतश्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस AC भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय हम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतश्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। नवदीप मायापुर धाम की जय। श्री क्षेत्र श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगामाई यमुनामाई भक्ति देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय। सामवेद गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। युग धर्म हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। श्री श्री राधा गिरिधारी की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा माई की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. So I'm very glad I am here in the presence of all the Vaishnavas in San Diego. Thank you very much for having me here. So today I've been asked to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 14th chapter, verse number 11. The chapter is titled King Citraketu's Lamentation. So there is no purport to this verse, so we'll just read the translation and try to discuss that. So the verse goes like this. Tasya bharya sahasranam sahasrani dasa bhavan santanekas chapin rapo nalebe tashu santitim. Tasya bharya sahasranam sahasrani dasa bhavan Santanikas chapi nripo nalabe tashu santatim. Tasya bharya sahasranam sahasrani dasha bhavan Santanikas chapi nripo nalabe tashu santatim. What's someone like? Tasya bharya sahasranam sahasrani dasha bhavan santanikas chapirdipo nalabe tashu santitim. Tasya bharya sahasranam sahasrani dasha bhavan Santanikas chapirdipo alabe shatu sansatim. Tasya bharya sahasranam sahasrani dasha bhavan Santanikas chapirdipo nalabe tashu santatim. Tasya bharya sahasranam sahasrani dasha bhavan santanikas chapirdipo nalabe tashu santatim. Tasya bharya sahasranam sahasrani dasha bhavan santanikas chapirdipo nalabe tashu santatim. So, word to word, Tasya, of him, King Citraketu. Bharya, of wives. Sahasranam, of thousands. Sahasrani, thousands. Dasha, 10. Abhavan, there were. Santanika, quite capable of begetting sons. Cha, and. Api, although. Dripa, the king. Na, not. Lebhe, obtained. Tasu, in them. Santatim, a son. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. This Citraketu had 10 million wives. But although he was capable of producing children, he did not receive a child from any of them. By chance, all the wives were barren. So there is no purport to this. So, Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarne Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Yonta Pravishya Mama Vacham Imam Prasuptam Sanjeevayati Akila Shakti Sudhamna Anyam Stahasta Charana Shavanat Vagadin Pranan Namo Purushaya Tubhyam. Thank you very much once again. Like I had mentioned, I'm very glad to be here amongst all the devotees of San Diego. I've heard a lot about this place. Finally, by the blessings of all the devotees and Badrinaran Maharaj especially, I'm glad I'm here. Well, I've been asked to speak on this verse. Let me warn you, the idea of a Bhagavatam class is that it's supposed to be offering of a person's realization. I don't have any, so I'll just try to share what I have learned from other teachers and other devotees, and especially doing that in front of illustrious devotees like Maharaj, Dravida Prabhu, Vijaya Prabhu. Is like, I feel like a 0-watt bulb in an afternoon sun. So we'll try. So bear with me. Now, we have been reading King Citraketu stories in this chapter, and prior we discussed about his other form as Vratasura. And one may wonder that why is Bhagavatam, which is supposed to be the summary of all Vedic knowledge and the cream and the essence, discussing the mundane lives of kings, their different challenges, be it with the family or be it with the citizens. And one of the reasons the Acharya says is also because the Bhagavatam serves as an inspiration for sadhakas or people like us to say that all those prior acharyas or the prior devotees who have come and obtained the highest goal of life came through a similar platform and challenges like all of us are experiencing. So it serves as a platform for inspiration that yes, it is possible to do it. And the other important factor is also that Krishna, as the Ashraya, is always ready to help his devotees, no matter what the circumstances, no matter what the challenges are. Be it the story of Gajendra, Prahlad, Maharaj Ambarish, all the time we see how Krishna is always there to help his devotees. But it's also important to remember that Krishna is ready to help, but he's ready to help in the proportion we want him to help us. Yeyatamam prapadante tam stateva bhajamyam. So if we want Krishna to help us, he's ready, but do we really want it? And he promises in the Bhagavad Gita, what's that verse? 9:22? 22. Tesham nitya abhiyuktanam yogakshema vahamyaham. So there's an interesting story Prabhupada shares of Arjunacharya. Arjunacharya was a great saint based in south of India. And when he was writing his commentaries on this verse, so Tesham nitya abhiyuktanam yogakshema vahamyaham says that I personally take the burden of my devotees on my head, and I come and personally deliver what they need. So Arjunacharya was thinking, the Lord has so many things to do. He's a busy person. Why will he come personally? So he'll send some agent, and the agent will deliver on behalf of the Lord. So what he did was he had written his commentary. The Lord will personally come and deliver, but he struck it off. And he said, an agent will come and deliver. Thinking like that, he just then after some time took off to take a bath in the river. In the meantime, and Arjunacharya was a simple Brahmana, but a great devotee. So he didn't have any much worldly possessions. Even the food grains in his house was very limited. So what happened is, his wife who was sitting in the house, she sees two very beautiful, attractive young boys coming to the house. And it's still prevalent in India in small villages like Mayapur. You have that bamboo rod, and on two ends you have baskets hanging to balance the weight. And they take the goods and distribute them like that. So two boys come with the bamboos and a lot of expensive food grains, ghee, butter, rice. And they say, Mother, Arjunacharya has sent this for you. And she started wondering that these are two small young boys. Why did Arjunacharya burden them so much? He's not so cruel. So why did he do this? And she asked the boys, you're so young, tiny, why did you take on so much burden? And the two boys replied, Mother, we weren't interested, but see our backs, Arjunacharya bet us with sticks, and he forced us. So then she started wondering, and she was very disturbed. My husband isn't so cruel. What happened? But she said, she had the motherly affection. She said, why don't you just sit down, have a breakfast? I'll cook something for you. And the boy said, no, we'll go again. If he sees us here, he'll beat us more. But she somehow convinced them, made them sit, had some prasad with them, and she started eating. And Arjunacharya comes back after taking his bath, and he sees, and in the Vedic culture, the wife eats after the husband is served and the family is served. So he was a little surprised that she's here eating and I'm here. Arjunacharya asked the wife, what happened? And she was very disturbed, so she gave a piece of her mind. And she said, when did you become so cruel? Why did you beat those boys and give them so much burden? And he was like, I don't know. I never met any boys. I didn't beat them. So Arjunacharya asked the whole pastime, what happened? And she described how the boys were, how they came, what they said. He realized, when I said Krishna doesn't personally come and deliver the goods, he personally came and delivered just to prove that I'm wrong. And the marks on the back were basically the lines that he had struck out. So in this way, Krishna is always there to come and provide whatever is needed. But the problem is, are we interested? Because anything that has to do with me, and by extension with this body, is considered as mine, aham and ameti. And people, due to this ignorance, are suffering all over the world, no matter where you are. Some time back, I was in Delhi, and a university student had come to interview me for her PhD thesis. So we were discussing, and she was doing theology. So at one point, I asked her, why are you studying? What's your end goal? Be knowledgeable. I said, okay, and why do you need that knowledge for? To get a good job? Why do you need a good job? To get a good salary. And what will you do with that money? To get a good house and good life. So we kept digging down, but you get the idea. So finally it came to a point, what do you actually want? I want to be happy. So all of us, because it's a part and parcel of our constituent nature to be blissful, so we are looking for that bliss in one way or the other, but due to the ignorance of knowledge, we think we can get that bliss in the form of some animal, keep a pet, do some social service, be happy. But ultimately, it's that carrot which is always in front of the donkey, but you never get it. You know, I read a good article back in 2008 and 9 when the recession hit. The two most successful professions were either you were a psychologist or you were a lawyer. You were making tons of money at that time. Because people were suffering internally, so they went to a psychologist, or they were suffering externally, so they went to a lawyer to sue someone. So everyone is looking, but they don't know where to look for. And that is the whole idea of this Krishna consciousness movement, to give them that knowledge, to give them that real sense of happiness. Krishna consciousness is the real source of happiness. And Krishna, in this process of preparing his devotees to act as his messenger, he'll give us a lot of tests. There is no test that Krishna will give us which we can't pass. I mean, if you compare ourselves to Pandavas, for instance, what was their amount of tribulations, even though all of them were related to Krishna, were seeing Krishna. But yet, they underwent challenges. Many times devotees think after I become a devotee and take initiation, no more problems. No. Problems will be there, but Krishna helps you overcome those by the dint of the spiritual knowledge. The other day when we were in Los Angeles, there was a tape of Prabhupada that was played, and Prabhupada there describes, he was saying about some class that he was giving, and one guy, Prabhupada, had told that if you don't utilize this human form of life, next life you're going to end up as a dog or an animal. And one guy lifted his hand and said, what's wrong in it? What's wrong in being an animal? So it's bad when people are suffering. But it's even worse when you don't know that you're suffering. There's that story of when Indra was a pig, and Brahma comes to rescue him, and he thinks, I have a good thing going on here. Why is he coming to disturb? I have a nice she-pig wife. I have beautiful pig children. We are rolling in filth. Life's good. What's wrong? So that is the state of affairs in Kali Yuga. And King Citraketu's story is something similar that has been going on from time immemorial. You must have heard of the king Vikramaditya, upon whom the Indian calendar system, Samvat calendar, is based upon. And it's a very inspiring story as well. King Vikramaditya was banished to the forest by his elder brother, Maharaj Bratahari. So Bratahari was known to be a very just, honest, and a devoted person. And as a ruler as well, he was very sincere. But one thing he was attached to was his wives, and he had quite a few of them. So he was attached to especially to his youngest wife, Pingala. So Vikramaditya once came to know that his wife was having an affair with her charioteer. So before he could go and speak to Maharaj Bratahari about it, she orchestrated a whole scene as if Vikramaditya was trying to do something wrong, and he got him banished. And some time had lapsed. So one rishi comes to King Bratahari's court, and he says, "Hey Raja, this is an apple for you. Eat it, and it will prolong your life and youth, because you are a just ruler, and the world needs people like you." So what Bratahari did is, he thought, what will I do with this apple? If I give it to my wife Pingala, she'll always remain beautiful, and I can enjoy more. So he gave the apple to Pingala. Now what Pingala did is, she thought, what is the use of me remaining here? What if my charioteer boyfriend, he eats it, he'll remain young, so let me enjoy with him. So then she passed on the apple to him. And the charioteer, that guy was anyway low class, but what he did was, he also was in a relationship with a prostitute. So he thought, let me pass it on to my girlfriend there, and I can enjoy. So he passed on the apple to her. The prostitute, despite her profession, was a pious person. She thought, I am living in this miserable life. I don't want to do it, but I am here. What will I do with living and prolonging this life? Let me give it to someone who is actually deserving of this. Who does she take that apple to? Maharaj Bratahari. Goes and gives the king the apple back. And he is shocked. So he asked her, where did you get it from? She said, this guy. He calls that guy. He said, who did you get it from? He said, the queen. And at that instant, Bratahari, later he writes Vairagya Shatakam, 100 verses describing renunciation. And there he narrates this pastime, saying that all those people who I thought were mine, none of them were. And who was actually mine, I banished him. So he immediately brings back Vikramaditya, installs him as the king, and takes off to the forest. So that is the reality, that in this world, all of us think that we have something that is ours. But ultimately, like Srila Prabhupada said, we are in the railway station or in an airport where we are meeting for some short period of time, and eventually we all move on. So, but in this brief time period, we have been given a priceless gift. The priceless gift is of bhakti. And today it appears as very easy for us, then that's because the previous acharyas have really struggled for us to be where we are. And if we really want to repay them, what was that pastime where Srila Prabhupada once came to some temple, and all the book distributors came there and they told the scores, and finally they said, Prabhupada, what will please you the most? They were thinking that Prabhupada would say, distribute more books, you are doing something wonderful, and they wanted to hear something like that. But Prabhupada says, become a pure devotee. So that is the whole idea, that until we become a pure devotee, what is the use? Externally, we may be doing a lot of things, but ultimately the whole purpose is to perfect our life and then to perfect everyone else's life as well. Janma sarthakari paropkar. And one of the greatest things that we need to realize is that if we are not grateful for what the gifts we have received, we are committing one of the biggest offenses. In Mahabharata, there is a nice story. Brahmana was standing on a bank of river, and he saw a Chandal putting his kamandal in the Ganga, taking some water. On the other hand, he was holding a meat of a dog. And what he was doing was, while he was walking, he was sprinkling Ganga water in front of him. The Brahmana thought this is a very peculiar sight. On one hand, he's holding meat, which is contaminating. The other hand, he's sprinkling Ganga water. So he stopped the Chandal and he asked him, "What are you doing?" And he says, "My dear sir, you know all the scriptures, so there's nothing for me to say. But in the scriptures it said, every offense, every sin that you commit, there is some solution for that. Do this, you'll get that. You do this, you'll do that. Take a bath on this day, do a fast on that day. There is a solution for everything. But there is no solution offered in the scriptures for an ungrateful person. So gratitude is the most important thing. And if we want to be grateful to our spiritual predecessors, the best way to do that, of course, we can never repay their debt, but the best way is to share this knowledge of Krishna consciousness. I mean, just to give you an example of the challenges that existed in the past, after Mahaprabhu disappeared from this world, the Vaishnava society basically, okay, there were Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamananda Prabhu, and then Rasikananda Prabhu and others, but at the same time there was a whole section that started coming up, which were the Apasampradayas, externally dawning as devotees, but internally they were just there for their own sense gratification. There is still a group in Bengal and Bangladesh who prefer to eat fish. It's the fruit of the water, jal phal, and they offer it to Mahaprabhu. So all sorts of things came up. And slowly, by the time that it was the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, basically Vaishnavism was considered as a ruffian's or as a beggar's tradition. If you want to live off the society for free, become a Vaishnava or claim yourself as a Vaishnava. And also the original fruit of Bhakti was so, you could say in one sense, maligned, and it was also morphed into so many different versions that one couldn't recognize what the original essence was. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, when he established the Gaudiya Math in Puri, there was this group, and they are still around. If you go to our Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan, on the backside you hear whole 24 hours, Bhajan Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Bolo Hare Krishna Hare Ram. How many of you have heard that? Yeah. So that they are the Sakhi Bekis. So what they would do was, this was invented to suppress the glories of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur started speaking very strongly against them in Puri. And so much so that what these people did was, they started taking out their equivalent of a Harinam, come in front of the Gaudiya Math, stand there and start chanting this. So what Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, and he was a militant in many ways against Maya. So what he did was, he put up a bell in front of the temple, made a brahmachari sit there, and as soon as he would see those guys on the other side of the street, he would start ringing the bell. And that meant, if you heard the sound, it meant that whatever service you're doing, no matter what it is, stop it immediately, come out on the streets and have a big Harinam Sankirtan with the mridangas and wampers and kartal. And it became so difficult actually at one point that there was a plot to assassinate him. There were multiple plots, and Puri was one of them. So Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur refused to leave Puri. And so the well-wishers actually went to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and asked him to tell Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur to leave. And that's when then he went on the South India tour. Similarly, if you see in the case of when he went to Tripura, at the invitation of the king of Tripura, because the Brahmanas at that time claimed that you can only achieve perfection if you're born as a Brahmana, and the Vaishnavas are subordinate to them. So to disprove this, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur went. And he was put as the last speaker on the last day, just so that he wouldn't get enough time to make his points. And in the meantime, he was there for 3 days. And what happened was, the king would every day send a big Rajbhog, kind of a plate for him. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur would take the tulsi and send the whole plate back. And the Smartas, they went and told the king, see, king, you're from a lower caste. That's why he's not taking anything that you have sent him. He thinks too high of himself. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur didn't say anything about it, and he just did what he had to do, spoke on the last day, made a very strong presentation towards the Vaishnavism, and he started going back. So when he was in the railway station, the king came to see him off and thanked him for coming and everything. He just, towards the end, he complained one small thing, that, Maharaj, you have not eaten anything. I offered you so many things, but you sent everything back. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur responded that how can I eat anything from a place where Krishna is not glorified, where Krishna is not served? So for 3 full days, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was fasting, just taking water and tulsi leaf. Nothing. Takes the train from Tripura, and if you know the geography, Tripura is on the other end of India. Takes the train, goes all the way to Calcutta, gets down in Calcutta, goes to Mayapur, reaches 1 o'clock in the night, then takes a bath, cooks something, offers it to his Mahaprabhu, then eats. And we are here struggling for a 24-hour Nirjala Ekadashi. So all these challenges that they have undergone and taken is just for us, so that we could have today what we have here in the form of the Hare Krishna movement. And it is essential that we take the cause and not only keep it to perfect ourselves, but also share it with others. In Vrindavan, Radharani, she's not so happy to dance with Krishna as much as she is happy when she gets other gopis to dance with Krishna. And in that same mood of Radharani, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu established this Sankirtan movement, he wants more and more people to come together and associate with Krishna in the form of his holy names. And that's what the whole Sankirtan movement is all about. Krishna, in the form of his name, is penetrating everyone's heart in Kali Yuga, but only if we serve as an instrument to take that to each and everyone. Many times devotees say India is doing a great preaching, and I'd say yes, that's because it's a very conducive atmosphere. But here in the West, I know for a fact that one person who becomes devotee is equivalent to making 10 in India. So you're right there on the front line. So I thank you all very much for taking up this Krishna consciousness movement to streets and villages of North America. But I also wanted to say something about the fact that how devotees, many times when we come into the process of bhakti, we think, okay, now everything is going to be fine. But we also have these challenges that come up, Adidevik, Adibhautik, Adhyatmik. And sometimes it could be also from the fact that our own association of devotees, we may not get along. We may have some quarrels, we may have some disagreements, and we think, okay, we'll move on. But the fact is, being in the association of devotees unlimitedly much better than being in the hands of karmis. Because just by being in the company of pure devotees, one is benefited. In Bhakti Aloka, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that if one sits in the room where a pure devotee is present, even if you don't interact with him, don't talk with him, just by dint of being in his presence, the Bhakti Devi who's residing in his heart also transfers into yours. So that is the power of a devotee. And Prabhupada also makes this interesting comment that if a person leaves, it's 50% the fault of the manager that he couldn't make sure that the devotee was taken care of and he was there. But it's also 50% fault of the devotee that he couldn't convince himself of this philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So the onus is on all of us to realize that this path of bhakti is the most sublime. There are many different forms of yoga system. And we see in this canto itself, when Twasta was chanting the mantras and he made a small error. And what happened? The results changed. Instead of being the enemy of Indra, it became Indra the enemy. That's why when we chant the Vedic mantras, there are many different things that need to be taken into consideration. Is the timing right? Certain mantras can be chanted at certain times, certain cannot be chanted. Is my pronunciation correct? Do I know the devatas? Do I know the rishi who has chanted the mantra? Do I know the purpose of this mantra? And am I eligible to chant? So there are so many different things. And in Kali Yuga, it's impossible for us to do that. And of course, these days some devotees chant Purusha Sukta and others, but these are Rigvedic mantras. So who has given them to us? But the Bhagavat mantra, that's the beauty, that it requires no time, no place, no circumstances. It's good to chant in any time. And that's the story that Mahaprabhu wanted to bring out through Gopal. All of us have heard of the story that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu once going to take a bath, he was holding on to his tongue. And this young boy, Gopal, he sees this peculiar thing and he asks, Mahaprabhu, why are you holding on to your tongue? He says, my tongue is accustomed to always chant Krishna's names and I am going for bathroom. So how can I chant? And he says, you are the one who has said that Krishna's name is all pure and can be chanted at all times. So of course, Mahaprabhu wanted to bring out the glories of Gopal, and that Gopal later became Gopal Guru Goswami. So that is the Taraka Brahma mantra for Kali Yuga that each one of us can benefit from. Everything that is to be offered in any other mantra is present in the Harinam itself. And if we, despite receiving so many instructions and so many opportunities, don't take up, then what is the use? Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in Jaiva Dharma, he says, the natural state of water is liquid, but if it's constantly witnessed and seen in the form of ice over a period of time, the person who sees that thinks the natural state of water is solid. And similarly, because we have been conditioned from time immemorial in this material world to suffer, to take on different karmic reactions one after the other, we think the default state of life is to suffer. But it's not. The default state of life is to be happy in Krishna consciousness. And this can be seen in many, many different ways, in many, many different shapes. And the Vaishnavas are always protected by Krishna to help them, to nourish them, to guide them. And what better example than the story of Maharaj Ambarish. Maharaj Ambarish was fasting for a very long time, 1 year. And at the end of the time of his fasting, he was just about to break his fast. And there comes Durvasa. Now Durvasa is quite popular for his temper. So he comes with all his disciples and he says, King, I'm going to have my breakfast with you. But before that, I'm going for a bath. I'll come back. Now, Ambarish is in a dilemma. What should I do? The Paran time has come up. Should I break the fast? Not break the fast? So he goes and consults his guru. So his guru advises him, take a tulsi that has been offered to the Lord, and in that way you have broken the fast and not broken the fast. And what happens? Durvasa Muni, by dint of his mystic potency, immediately realizes that Ambarish Maharaj has done this. Shows up there and is so upset, so angry, takes a strand of his hair, throws it on the ground, and here appears a big demon. Demoness? Okay, thank you. So, what happens immediately? Sudarshan appears there and kills her. I was going to say him. Thank you for that.
Either, I think demon can be used either gender, but go ahead.
Yeah. So, and immediately Sudarshan goes after Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni starts running all over the planet, all over the universe. Goes to Lord Shiva, goes to Lord Brahma, and finally goes to Lord Vishnu. And you know, the whole time period takes 1 year for him to travel all these places. And all the time, Sudarshan is chasing him and burning him with his fiery nature. And finally goes to Vishnu and he says, my Lord, help me, protect me, tell your weapon to back off. He says, I can't do that because you have offended my devotee. The only person in this whole creation who can help you is Ambarish. Go to him. And Ambarish comes back. Durvasa Muni comes back to Ambarish. And all this time, that 1 year, so actually Ambarish Maharaj was fasting for 2 years, because all the time that Durvasa Muni was running around, he was always sitting there and praying and hoping that nothing ill happens to this Brahmana. So he hadn't eaten anything. And when he comes back, he falls at the feet of Maharaj Ambarish. And in Bhagavatam, there is a beautiful description of that. Ambarisha upavritya tat padav dukkito grahit. That he latched onto the feet of Ambarish Maharaj. Not just paid his dandavats or anything. He held on to his feet. Protect me, protect me. And Ambarish Maharaj immediately backs off. And he offers his prostrated obeisances and he says, what are you doing? You're a Brahmana, not even a common Brahmana. You're a Brahma Rishi. And here I am a Kshatriya, a Grahastha, and you're holding on to my feet. Why are you doing that? He says, no, I have to seek forgiveness from you. He said, what have you done that you have to seek forgiveness? Then, but still, because the Vaishnava, by default, he's compassionate towards every living entity. He said, okay, fine, if you think so. So he starts praying to Lord Sudarshana, and there is this series of prayers which he makes. And even then, Lord Sudarshan is not pacified. Finally, he says, Yadino Bhagavan Prita Eka Guna Sarvashraya. And he says, if the Lord, who is one without the second, if he is pleased with me and my family for anything that we have done for him, then please forgive this Brahmana. Only then Sudarshan is pacified. And he goes away. So that is the potency of a devotee, that he holds the Lord in his heart all the time. And Krishna always is there to take care of him and protect him. And we see this again in the story of Haridas Thakur, Shyamananda Prabhu. Actually, it said that these were the only 2 instances where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally intervened to take on the sufferings of these 2 devotees. So Krishna is ready to reciprocate as long as we are ready to receive it. If you have a pot which has a lot of holes in it and you pour no amount of water, it's not going to stay because the holes are going to get the water out. So similarly, as long as we have the ideas of Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mada, Matsarya, lust, anger, greed, envy, hatred, these holes will serve as a detriment for our advancement in Bhakti. So the best process for us to advance is to be in the company of Vaishnavas, especially those who are even more advanced than us, to constantly take Krishna's names, study scriptures in the form of Bhagavatam, worship the deities, and as much as possible reside in Dham. There is a letter of Prabhupada that I had seen where he writes that I want my devotees to work hard to spread the Krishna consciousness movement, and towards the end of life come and reside in Vrindavan Dham and perfect their life. So it's a very beautiful instruction that Srila Prabhupada has given us, and he has given these embassies of the spiritual world all over the world for us. When you go to the American embassy in India, all the embassies all over the world, the rules of that country start applying there. The currencies change, the protocols change. Similarly, in this material world, there is all sorts of bad things going on, internally, externally. But these are the embassies of the spiritual world, where Krishna is present personally, where Prabhupada is there, and we have this opportunity to perfect our life. So let us take that opportunity. And today is Nirjala Ekadashi, so I'd just like to speak a little about that as well. Of course, Badrinayan Maharaj did make a mention about it in the morning. So the Pandavas, when they were in the forest, Vyasadeva would come now and then to encourage them, inspire them, give them some spiritual instructions. So once Bhima was talking to Vyasadeva, and he said, all my brothers are very pious. They are very religious. They do all austerities. They follow all Ekadashis. But they keep chastising me that I don't follow Ekadashi. And being the son of Vayu, I have a special kind of fire in my stomach, Jataragni. And because of that, my diet is very, very demanding. And I have to eat. But so I can't follow Ekadashi, and my brothers tell me I'll go to hell if I don't follow Ekadashis. So I can't do that. So tell me, give me a solution by which I can overcome this. So Vyasadeva says that if you can follow this one Ekadashi without drinking water, you'll make up for every other Ekadashi. So that is the glory. But he also adds on, if you see in the Brahma Vaivatra Puran where this description comes up, you will see that after completing the tapasya in the form of fasting, one is recommended to give certain items to a qualified brahmana or a devotee. So if you give a shawl or a bed, you get certain things. You give a pot of water, you get a certain things. So all these are recommended process. But the ultimate aim of Ekadashi is to remember Krishna more and dedicate ourselves in his service more. If in the name of Ekadashi we decide, okay, we'll fast and we are unable to do anything, then what's the whole point? I remember one devotee in Kartik, he had decided to eat only 2 apples in the whole day for the whole month. So he would eat that by 8th or 9th day. I stopped seeing him. And after 2 days I went up, I checked where is he. He's in his room. I said, what's going on? He said, I'm too weak, Prabhu, I can't walk. I said, then what's the point? Krishna is pleased not by the external factors. He's pleased by our offering of devotion. When Sabari was in the forest and Lord Ramachandra was passing, so she had these berries. So what she would do, she would eat every berry and check whether it was sweet or not, and then offer it to Lord Ramachandra. So he didn't see, oh, where is the tulsi, where are the mantras, where is this? The only thing he saw was it was offered with bhakti, with love, and he accepted. And the same thing in the house of Vidura, when Krishna was offered the banana peels, and the bananas were thrown away, but Krishna ate the banana peels because that was offered with love. So it doesn't matter how big of a temple you build, how small of a temple you build, how opulent is the prasad or not. Of course, we want to offer Krishna the best of the best, but the whole idea is it has to be coated and covered and dipped into bhakti. So thank you very much. It's 8:35 now. I'll stop here, and if you have any comments, any questions, I'll take that. Maharaj?
Very good class. Thank you very much. You said that Krishna, well, I was thinking of 2 things. I didn't follow the connection, and I was probably distracted, of the Chandala holding the meat and sprinkling Ganga Jal. And what was the purport of that?
The idea was one has to be grateful, and gratitude is one of the most important qualities one needs to possess. And
I heard that, but I didn't follow the connection.
No, I'm coming to that.
Okay.
So the whole idea is our predecessors, of course, we are indebted to everyone, the Bhumi, the Rishis, the Devatas, and everyone. But we are especially indebted to our spiritual teachers and other devotees. So if we don't have gratitude, that's a very bad sign. And gratitude for the devotees and Vaishnavas means we take up their instruction and pass it on.
Okay, I got that part too, but I didn't follow the connection to the story.
I was just referring what happens if one doesn't have gratitude. That was the only purpose of saying that.
But how does the Chandala holding meat and sprinkling Ganga Jal, he was grateful or wasn't grateful?
Oh, sorry. Okay,
that's the point I'm trying to catch.
Okay,
I heard the other part was nice. I was just trying to follow the connection.
Okay, I'm sorry. I forgot one minor detail, which was, I think, a major detail. He says, I don't want to walk on the path where an ungrateful person has already walked. So I'm purifying the path by sprinkling the Ganga water. I'm sorry for that.
Okay, great. No, that clears it up. Okay, but so my question was, and I've heard this before, and I'm just trying to pull more out of you because there's juice in there. I'm just trying to pull more out of your heart. Krishna never gives us a challenge that we can't carry the weight of. Well, we've seen devotees. I mean, in my own life, I've had things that, whoa, what was that all about? I mean, I know that Krishna's and I've grown because in hindsight I can see it. But sometimes we see devotees apparently are crushed or discouraged. So is it a fact that Krishna never gives us anything that we can't carry?
There is a Super Bowl ad that had come out of Chrysler. How many of you have seen that? It was one of the best, or in the sense, one of the most successful ad campaign ever. 300 million people had seen that, and that boosted up the sales of Chrysler in a big way. And there is a line in that it says, because it showcases the whole atmosphere of Detroit and how it was deteriorating, and here you have in this wild place of Detroit the best of the best coming out. So there's a line that says, the strongest steels are forged in hottest of fires. So similarly, the best of the devotees that come out are from the greatest of challenges. And Kunti Devi, she says the same thing, that, my dear Krishna, even though we are relatives, me and my children have undergone so much suffering, but still I pray that you give me more suffering so I can always remember you. So yes, it is a fact, Maharaj, what you're saying, that many times devotees get discouraged, they move out. But the fact is, had they persisted a little more and taken the right guidance, Krishna would eventually come through, and he always comes through. It's just that maybe we don't have enough Shraddha for us to see the divine message of Krishna and the divine play that he's putting up for us.
Okay, very good. I would add this.
Just like coal, same principle. A diamond is coal. It just takes time and pressure. Time and pressure, and that coal will become a diamond. And we don't see the full arc. In others, we may see a devotee who went through difficulty and went away from Krishna consciousness. We don't know. Krishna's the expert physician, and he's playing multi-dimensional chess. We're playing chess on a chessboard, 2 dimensions. But Krishna's 1,000 moves ahead of us. We don't know what was in that person's heart. We don't know where that person winds up. Maybe apparently they went away, but we don't know where they're going to be in their next life, born as a devotee, and because they went through this, then that happened. We don't know the total arc of that person's life. So Krishna's the expert physician. He's in the heart doing the surgery. He knows where that person will be in 3 or 4 lives, and how ultimately, because of that, ultimately they did this and that, and they became stronger and the better for it.
Thank you, Maharaj.
But your analogy, I'm going to use it. Thank you very much. About the strongest steel comes out of the hottest fire. Thank you.
Okay. So, okay. Yes, bro.
It has to do with the verse. Because they say when you read something, if you don't understand a word or a concept, your mind shuts down. It doesn't go any further. So here we're talking about a king who had millions of wives. How's that possible? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So someone who just opens the book and says, oh, okay, this is just mythology or something like that, but it's not. So how do you answer that? How can a king have millions of wives? 10 million. And that's a lot of laundry, you know.
Yeah.
He couldn't beget a child in any of them. Meaning that.
Right.
How long does that take?
Yeah, it has to do a lot with understanding the concept of time and its interplay with our realities. And as we see, every yuga has its characteristics and every yuga has its qualities. And similarly, what we are reading is of a different era and a different time where the world and the universe was in a different space. Now, relatively, it's very difficult for us to understand how can, so Lord Sudarshana has 1,000 hands. Where does it fit? How can you have 1,000 hands? But he has. That's what the Shastras say. So it's difficult for us in our conditioned state to understand realities or dimensions that are beyond us. And naturally, Kalena Alpa Ayusha Sabhya, Prayana Alpa Ayusha Sabhya Kalau Asmin Yuge Jana Manda Sumanda Matyo Manda Bhagyo Hi Upadrataha. That in Kali Yuga, everyone's intelligence is diminished, age is diminished, and by default, we are unfortunate. So I always wondered, how is it that the age is going to diminish? Shastras, Ayurveda says at least you live for 100 years in Kali Yuga. It's our lifestyle that brings down the age. So, especially after pandemic, I started realizing that maybe something like this happens, some biowarfare happens, something happens, and the age collapses. And before coming to LA, I was in DC. I was at AARP's headquarters, American Association for Retired Persons. Is that the abbreviation, Maurice?
That's it,
Yeah. So I had a question. I asked them, what or who do you consider as a senior citizen? I said, when AARP was founded, and they claim to be the largest nonprofit in the US with 38 million members. So I said, we started off with 65. Anyone who's 65 and above was considered a senior. And about 20 years ago, we made it to 60. Now, anyone who's 50 and above is a senior citizen.
That's right.
So you can become a member if you're 50. You can join AARP. So what's happening is, eventually, right in front of us, we are seeing this happening. Sometime back, a donor of ours in Hyderabad, he lost his son. And they were all at a dining table having dinner, and the son is 18 years old, drops dead, right on the dining table, gone. So, and if you look up on YouTube, especially after pandemic, you can see so many videos of people dropping dead, especially in India. Yeah, just look it up, Marge. People falling dead, India. They're like walking, falling dead, dancing, falling dead, eating, falling dead. Now, whatever the reasons may be, some say vaccine, some say COVID, whatever it is, I'm not getting into that, but I'm saying that Bhagavatam is true. It's just that we don't have the bandwidth of time, space, and experience to comprehend that. So that requires a certain amount of Shraddha, faith. Does that fully answer you, or partially?
No, you hit the nail right on the head. There was a devotee who came from India. He was a nice guy. I took him shopping. He needed a jacket or something. He was a village boy. Smart guy, but raised in a village. Had never seen an escalator. You know how the stairs, how it comes? He was standing there. I went to get some drinking water or something, and I came back, and he was staring at that thing. And he said, "Where do the stairs go?" And if you don't understand the you've never seen those things opened up, you've never experienced or seen it, it's pretty far out. And I'd never thought of it because I'd grown up. I knew there was a belt and I knew how it would work. But he was like, wow. So mystic yogis and how they do things, for us, it's like inconceivable. But if you know the mechanics of the thing, well, it makes sense. It's no problem. So, like you were thinking, it's a good analogy. Where do the 1,000 arms, where do they all fit? But it's multidimensional, it's mystic, but someone who knows the art can do it.
I'm sure that if you went back 500 years and you said that in a mere 500 years, people are going to carry a little box around, and they can not only talk to people on the other side of the world, but they can see them as well. And that's impossible. How could that possibly be?
That's true. Thank you. Yeah, that's a very good point.
But if I could just make one comment.
They have a shop on Amazon.
About the bodyguards of Ugrasen. I think it's 10 quadrillion in the old Krishna book. And a few devotees couldn't accept that. I'm not getting into that story, but anyway. But it's like, where do they all stand on the earth? It just seems impossible.
Did the math on it one time.
But I just looked up the word trillion, and forget the bodyguards. Each of the cowherd boys that Krishna was with was tending calves to the extent of a koti, arbata, shankha, and padma. That is the way of counting. And if you look in the word by words, 1 trillion, and padma is 10 trillion. So where did they all fit? Where did all those cows fit? And it's just like Achincha, it's another dimension,
That's usually our default.
Just if you think about Krishna himself and all the things that he does, it's completely beyond any calculation that we can have.
Well, how
what
is
this
Krishna and all his entourage inside an atom?
Yes, yes.
I'll just
He's
add.
there as Paramatma, but he's never alone. So everything else is there. It all folds into itself.
I'll just add one point to it, and I think I can conclude with that. India and Pakistan are at war, even if they don't openly declare it. They are at war, and the highest battlefield in the world is in a place called as Siachen Glacier. It's right on top of the Himalayas, 7,000, 6,000 meters above the sea level. Both have, the India dominates the Siachen, but below that is the Pakistan army, and it's like freezing. I mean, minus 30, minus 40. And you have the Indian army stationed 24/7 there. So one of my contacts, he was heading an entire, 40, 50 army men there. So they go on rotations. Every few months they change them. So he was posted there, and one of the things that they need to do is every day take out their jeep and go on a trip to see nothing is wrong is happening. So he says at some point we just got down and we were looking over the landscape. So I was like this, looking over here, and one of my, we call them in India Javans. What is the base rank of a military officer here? Private. So someone like a private. And he says, "Sir, turn around, see what's happening." So he turns around, and everyone is, on Siachen Glacier with gloves, cap, coat, and everything. And he said he saw two people, nothing but a loincloth, like a gamcha, walking. And he saw that wherever they were putting their feet, the ice below their feet was vaporizing. Inconceivable. Yes, Maharaj.
Colonel Garg. He's passed away. He came here. Maybe you remember Mr. Garg and Colonel Garg and his wife. They used to come. He passed away about 10 years ago. He used to come to the temple. Saturday program used to come, and he was at that Kargil Glacier. That maybe it's a different glacier, but it's also up there in the Himalayas.
Kargil is very close to Siachen.
So where they were Chinese and they were there, and same guy, all getting frostbite, the whole thing. And he had the same experience that he was out on patrol. And he said there were 4 yogis came along. He said, "I don't believe in magical thinking." I couldn't even get it. He was that Arya Samaji guy. I couldn't even get him to Krishna as a form, He said, "All I know is this. 4 yogis walking, it's just like you described. They had a chadar, they had a gamcha, a lungi, not even a fold, just a lungi. And his assistant, his aide-de-camp said, and they looked at the feet, and wherever they were stepping, the ice was melted. And what they were doing is they were generating heat from inside. They were generating their own heat, and they were completely warm. And whatever they stood, it was actually melting. That was Colonel Garg. So confirming now I'm very glad to hear your story.
Thank you. So, okay, I think I've gone over time, so I thank you all very much. And if I've said something that was not appropriate, please forgive me. Thank you. Hare Krishna. All goes Srila Prabhupada.